You might be thinking to yourself, Caitlin, why do you have a jar full of little pieces of paper? Let me tell you, this is my TBR jar. I have 61, actually I think it's 59 and a half now, unread physical book. I own 60 books that I have not read, and that is a problem. So for 2025, my entire goal for the year is to only read books that I physically own that I have not read yet. That means I am not buying any new books for a whole year. That means I'm not reading any new releases. Now that I'm saying this out loud, I might not be able to do this. But I digress. I picked 2 books so far. The very first book that I picked was Of Jade and Dragons by Amber Chen. This is the first book in the series. The second one comes out in June. And you best believe as soon as I finished this one, I went over to NetGalley to apply to be an ARC reader for the second one because I loved this one so much. This book was like the perfect mix of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Legend of Korra, kind of Industrial Revolution-esque themes, Anthony and Kate from season 2 of Bridgerton vibes, and almost like Mulan kind of inspired retelling because the main character goes undercover as a boy into the engineer guild to like find out about her father's past. It's a whole thing. I will make a whole separate YouTube video about my review of this book because it was actually really good and it was a great way to start off the year. So this was the very first book that I pulled, and then the second book that I pulled was The Priory of the Orange Tree. Now I had begun this book about 2 months ago, but I was just in a reading slump and I was just trying to force myself to read The Priory of the Orange Tree and just finish it, but I only got like 120 pages in. So of course this was the second book that I picked from my TBR jar, and I'm listening to the audiobook as I read along, and I think I'm just over halfway, and it's really good so far. And I do definitely recommend reading along while listening to the audiobook because, like most fantasy books, there are a lot of names in this series that I would have no idea how to pronounce otherwise. So that leaves 59 remaining books, and a lot of these special editions unfortunately are part of them. I have a problem with buying special editions, okay? Don't look at me, don't look at me. But I'm going to go through and read. I made lists on Canva so that I could print them out and cut them so that they were all nice and I could actually read them. Some of the books on this list you guys might try and come for me for. I'm apologizing well in advance, okay? Without further ado, let's start this. So on the list, I have The Hunger Games. Yeah. I haven't read The Hunger Games. I tried to read the first one with my best friend last year so that we could watch the new movie that was coming out, but I think I got like 100 pages in and then I was just in a reading slump, so I never picked it back up. So The Hunger Games. That's on here. The Hobbit / Lord of the Rings. I don't know how I'm calling myself a fantasy girly and I haven't read those books. Again, don't come for me. The Night Ends with Fire. This is a book that I have been really excited about for a while, but I just haven't picked it up yet. It's by KX Song, and this is a legitimate Mulan retelling. So I am very excited about this one. I think it's a standalone and it looks pretty short and sweet, so I don't know why I haven't read it yet, but I am very excited for that one. The next one is The Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzin. I don't have the second one. There is a second one out, and I do have like the Waterstones special edition. Waterstones books are immaculate. I love Waterstones so much. When the Moon Hatched, again, I have 2 copies of this book. I haven't read it. I don't care. They were pretty. This is again the Waterstones edition, and this was a special edition that I saw someone making, and I was like, this is beautiful. I need to have it. I need to read that book to justify having 2 special editions of it. Okay. 5 Broken Blades. I did just get the second one. It just came out recently, so I will be reading these 2 together. There are a lot of series on here, like The Hunger Games and Lord of the Rings, so when I pull The Hunger Games, I'm going to read all 5 books, so it's going to take a while for me to get through these. So really I have more than 61 unread books because a lot of these are series. Oh, again, as I'm explaining this doesn't sound like a good idea. The next one is Blood Over Brighthaven. I love ML Wong. The Sword of Kaigen was my favorite read last year, my Roman Empire read, and ML Wong has now become an instant buy author for me. So the fact that I haven't read Blood Over Brighthaven is criminal. Cosmere, next book. I have that on here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times because I am still in my Cosmere reading journey. If you want a reading order list for the Cosmere, go check out my last video because I go through the entire reading order list that I am currently following, and I'm only about halfway through my own Cosmere journey, so I've got a ways to go with that. And one of them on here is the Stormlight Archives, which is 5 books all over 1,000 pages long, so that's gonna take me a while. The next two go hand in hand. Caraval and Once Upon a Broken Heart I have specifically on here. If I pull Once Upon a Broken Heart, then I can only read it after Caraval. So if I pull Once Upon a Broken Heart and I haven't read Caraval, I'm going to put it back, take out the Caraval one, and read Caraval. Next is The Poppy War. Again, I have all 3 books on Audible. I think they were free, or at least all 3 for 1 credit. It was like a deal going on Audible several months ago, so I snatched them immediately. Haven't listened to them yet though. I again tried to read it. I got like 50 pages in and I was like, this is a really intense book. I feel like I need to be in the right mindset for it. And also I was listening to the audiobook, not reading the physical book, and I think The Poppy Wars is one of those books where it's going to benefit you for reading the actual physical book. Next is the Farseer trilogy. Now, like the Cosmere, the Farseer trilogy is part of a big, extensive world by Robin Hobb called The Realm of Elderlings, I believe it's called. And the Farseer trilogy is the first one in that whole universe. I don't know much about the universe. I don't know the reading order of that whole universe yet. But like the Cosmere, for me, I got the Mistborn trilogy. And once I read that and decided that I liked Mistborn and wanted to continue with the Cosmere, then I bought the rest of the Cosmere. And I fear that's what's going to happen with me in the Farseer trilogy. I'm going to read them, and then depending on how I feel about them, I will then buy the rest of them, read the rest of the Realm of Elderlings. Next is The Stars Are Dying. I bought this book when it was indie published, and then I sold the copy because I never read it and I never found myself reaching for it. So I sold my indie copy, and when it got traditionally picked up, they came out with the special edition. I was like, you know what? I'll get the traditionally published version and I'll give it a try. Another one that's gonna irk a lot of people that I haven't read is the One Dark Window duet, the Shepherd King duet, I think it's called. Those kinds of books aren't usually my vibe, but it's so popular, and I got the Barnes & Noble special editions when they came out, and that's when I was like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna buy these and I'm gonna give them a go. The next one is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I haven't read any Ali Hazelwood books, but Bride got very popular last year. It's, I believe, an arranged marriage between like a vampire and a werewolf, and it's a little spicy. The next one I feel like I will get a lot of hate for as well is Aragon. I haven't read Aragon. I haven't read any of the books, but when Murtagh came out, I was like, that looks really interesting, and I knew it was in like the same world as Aragon, but I didn't know if I needed to read Aragon before reading Murtagh, so I have Aragon on here. And I do plan on getting the Aragon books, so Murtagh itself isn't on here, but Aragon is, because I'm gonna lump them all together like I did with the other series and read all of Aragon and then Murtagh. Avatar: The Last Airbender. I have all of the comic books from Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra, and I haven't read them all, but I have them all. I've read most of them, but I would like to finish them. They're cute little comic books. They're quick, easy reads. I love Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra. It's a comfort thing for me, so I want to finish those comic books. Then is The Rise of Kyoshi. Now, these are actual books. It's a duet of The Rise of Kyoshi, and then Yang Chen, I believe she also has a duet of her own books. I don't have those, so they're not on the list. So I just have The Rise of Kyoshi. Next is Babel by R.F. Kuang. Don't know how I've made it this far after being a big book talker, now coming over to BookTube, but I haven't read Babel. It took the world by storm when it came out 2 years ago. I have it, I've bought it, I've had it since then, haven't read it. Along the same lines of Babel is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Don't know how I haven't read it yet. I keep hearing mixed things about The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, so that's why I haven't picked it up, but this year we're gonna read it. Next is Project Hail Mary. My mom read this 5 years ago when it came out, and she told me to read it because I'm really into astronomy and physics and stuff like that, and just anything space related. So when she read it, she was like, I think you'd really like it. It takes a while to get into, but I think you would really like it. So I bought it back in like 2020. Haven't picked it up since, but apparently it's a really good book and people love the audiobook, so I will be reading that this year. Then we have A River Enchanted. I don't know what the second one is called, but it's a duet by Rebecca Ross. She is also the author of Divine Rivals, so I love her writing. I loved Divine Rivals. Ruthless Vows was only okay for me personally, but I will be reading her next duology because I feel like if I like these ones just as much as I liked Divine Rivals, that Rebecca Ross will become an instant buy author for me too. Then we have An Ember in the Ashes. Again, I hear mixed things about this series. I only have the first book so far, so if I pull that, I'm going to read all of them. We'll see how that one goes. Then we have The Songbird in the Heart of Stone, which is the next book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I read the first 2.5-ish, really. Serpent in the Wings of Night, and then Ashes in the Star-Cursed King, I believe, and the novella in between. The novella was actually my favorite out of the three. And then The Songbird and the Heart of Stone is the next one. I think the same characters are in it, but it's a different character's story that's starting. Next, I have The Last Night. This book was gifted to me by an author, so I don't totally know a whole lot about it. I plan on reading it this year. Same with the next book called Keily, Keily. I don't know how to pronounce it. Again, it was gifted to me by the publisher, the author. Next is Lost in the Light. I found this book on Book Talk. It's by an indie author. The way that she described it, I was like, you know what? That sounds interesting. I'll give it a shot. It sounded intriguing, so I'm very excited for that. Cruel Seduction is the last book that I own physically of the Dark Olympus series by Katie Roberts. I believe there are more that have since come out. I really like the Dark Olympus series by Katie Roberts. Another one that people are going to come for me for not reading is Six of Crows. I know. I read Shadow and Bone to read Six of Crows because I'm very much I want to read it in the right reading order series kind of person. So I wanted to read Six of Crows, but I was like, no, I have to read Shadow and Bone before I read Six of Crows. So I read Shadow and Bone. I liked it more than I thought I would. And then I just was like, okay, I need a break. On the same note as Six of Crows is King of Scars duet. But again, like Once Upon a Broken Heart, I have only after Six of Crows. So if I pull King of Scars, I'm going to put it back in and then read Six of Crows. And then after that, read King of Scars, if that makes sense. Next is Stolen Heir. This is part of the Cruel Prince world. I know there are more books coming out or have come out since the Stolen Heir. I read The Cruel Prince. I loved The Cruel Prince. I just wasn't really in the mood for a YA book at the time, so I just didn't pick it up. Next is Legendborn. I have the first two books, Legendborn and Bloodmarked. I haven't read them yet. They've been on my shelf for like a year now. I know there are more books out now, or maybe there's a third one coming out soon, something like that. But I hear nothing but amazing things about these books. I think it's YA, which is why I haven't picked it up yet. I just wasn't really in a YA mood for a while. Then we have Fairytale. I am kind of scared of Fairytale. I got it for Christmas. I think I read like 2 pages of it when I got it on Christmas, and then I put it down and I was like, I don't know if this is for me yet. And that's when I had the idea of making a TBR jar, where I was like, I'm never gonna read any of these books if I don't just like kind of make myself pick them up and like get through them. I know I will enjoy them. It's just I'm a very big mood reader person, and so I feel like this was a good way for me to kind of combat that. Then I have These Twisted Bonds. I read the first book. I am blanking on the name right now. I'll put it up right here. And These Twisted Bonds is the second one in this duet. I hear it's better than the first one, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Then I have the Cradle series. I read the first one called Unsold by Will White. My best friend absolutely loves this series. It's her favorite series ever. And so I read the first one, and I enjoyed it. I listened to it on audiobook while I read along with it, but there are like 12 books in this series, and I just wasn't ready to start a big new fantasy series yet. So that's why I haven't continued it. Next, I have The Wrath of the Serpent, which is written by my friend, Allison Aldridge. She gave me a special edition of the book that she had left over from a Polygon. She signed it. It's so cute. So I need to read that this year. Next is another one that I was gifted. It's called Kidnapped by My Mate. I think it's like a Beauty and the Beast kind of retelling, but the beast is a werewolf. Then I have Children of Time. This book I picked up like 2 years ago after the second Avatar movie came out, because Avatar is my absolute favorite movie ever. I love those movies. If I could only watch one movie for the rest of my life, it would be those movies. I really wanted something to fill that hole after watching the second Avatar that wasn't just rewatching Avatar. So I was like, there have to be books out there like Avatar, and Children of Time was one that was recommended that was similar to Avatar. Then I want to finally finish Ice Planet Barbarians. I don't know if Ruby Dixon is still writing books in this world, in this series. There are like 38 or 9 books. I have a whole screenshot of a reading order from Ruby Dixon's website actually. So it's the approved reading order list. Then I have Zodiac Academy. I have the first 4 or 5 books physically, and everyone loves the Zodiac Academy. It's like a love-or-hate relationship, kind of like Twilight almost. It's so bad you love it, is what I'm getting from people who have read the Zodiac Academy. But I also heard that it will absolutely destroy you. Then I have Gil, again a big book that was all over Book Talk a couple years ago. I bought the first one. I haven't read it. Then I have The Curse of Ophelia. I think the series is almost complete. It did start out indie published, and it is now since been traditionally published, or at least the last couple ones are traditionally published. I don't know if the first ones are being remade into traditionally published books. Same thing with the Book of Azrael. I've had the first one for a while. Amber Nicole is such a sweetheart. Love her. Now that there are more books out in this series, I am very excited to start reading it. Next one is another one that people either might get mad at me for reading or not, don't know, is Circe. I read The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller 5 years ago, and it wasn't my cup of tea then. I have since amended myself. Okay, go watch my very first video video I posted where I'm talking about that book. I was crazy for giving it 3 stars. Don't come for me. And so I bought the book Circe by her, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. The next 2 I have to read because I own the books. I'm nervous about reading them. They are Light Lark by Alex Astor and Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I'm nervous about reading these 2, in all honesty, because I've again heard very, very mixed things about these, so I don't know if I'm going to enjoy them or not, but I own them. I have to read them. Then we have The Faithful and the Fallen, which is by John Gwynne. Am I saying that right? Am I even getting that right? I don't have the books up, so I'm going to put all the pictures here, but I don't have the books up. I've had this series since my birthday, which was in June, and I've just heard such good things about his writing style, about many different of his series, and this one was the one that was recommended to me the most. Next is Fear the Flames and all of the books that are coming after. This one was again indie published, that is now becoming traditionally published. I have the indie published version. I don't have the traditionally published version, so I don't know which one I should read, but I have the indie one, so I'm gonna read the indie one. And last but not least is the Forgotten and the Feared series. My friend E.C. Garrett wrote this series. She has, I believe, 3 books out so far. One is a novella, I want to say, so I need to finish the first one and then read the rest of them. But that concludes all of the books that I own that I have not read yet. They're all cut up inside of here. I am currently reading my second one of the year, which is Prior of the Orange Tree, and as soon as I'm done with that, I will make a review about it and then a video pulling my very next read of the year. So like and subscribe, stick around to come on this reading journey with me.